I'm going to get a suntan at the same time I get to talk to you. That's wonderful this morning. Thank you all for coming. I've been acquainted with Americans for Prosperity for a long time, and I want to thank all of you for your dedication and holding our feet to the fire and trying to keep spending in line and taxes low and all the good things you do. We appreciate the good work you've done and taking the time out today to come. This election, I'm running for Congress in the 3rd District. It's a critical election. This is a... Thank you. We're going to win it, by the way. It's a critical election in the 3rd District. It's a critical election for Kansas. It's a critical election for the Republican Party. And I think it's been one of the best opportunities we've had to take the seat since the other guy got it. It's one of the best opportunities. As I've thought about this race several times, I thought about an old story, and I don't know if you all have heard this, about the surgeon, the engineer, and the politician were arguing about who had the oldest profession. And the surgeon spoke up first, and he says, you know, a rib was taken from Eve, and certainly a surgeon was involved in that process. And the engineer said real quick, wait just a second. Before that happened, there was chaos, and out of chaos came order. And certainly an engineer was involved in that process. And the politician's eyes lit up real quick, and he said, but who do you think created chaos? That's what we've got in Washington, D.C. right now. We've got a Congress that's broken. Congressmen who have got their heads stuck in the sand, not paying attention to the critical issues, just wanting to argue and bicker and get nothing done on a regular basis. It's broken in Washington, D.C., and we deserve a whole lot better than a broken Congress and a D.C. that will not address the critical issues of this nation. They've forgotten who we are, they've forgotten how interested we are in those issues, and they've stuck their head in the sand and decided not to go after those issues. I want to tell you this morning, I am committed to go to Washington, D.C. and bring a new day and a change as much as I can as a member of Congress. I think I've been in the Kansas Senate now for 12 years. I think what I say when I say I make that commitment is backed up by accomplishments in the Kansas Senate and the legislature. I've been a bridge builder. I know how to get work done in a legislative body. I know how to bring people together. I know how to have big ideas and be innovative in trying to solve the problems of our state and our country. I'm a lifelong Kansan. I got in the middle of my heart and my blood our common sense values of Kansas. I grew up at the age of 15. I started as a busboy at the Old Linwood Manor Hotel in Overland Park, and if anybody knows where that is and what that is, I'll give you a prize after this meeting. But it was a great experience. I started there as 15, and when I was 19, I was in management of that hotel already, and went through the management and hotel business, spent 40 years as a leader in the travel and tourism industry, ending up being the founding president of the Overland Park Convention and Visitors Bureau. And then I decided it was time to get into public service. And it was time to spend time in the Kansas Senate. And in 1995, I was appointed to the Kansas Senate. Been able to bring some great things. I've worked hard to create new jobs for Kansans. I've worked hard to keep taxes low in the state of Kansas. I've worked hard to create a vision for education for our children in the state of Kansas. Some of the things that I'm proud to have been a part of and led the charge on is the Kansas Economic Growth Act. Some of you may be familiar with that. It was the Bioscience Initiative was part of it. The Kansas Bioscience Authority was a part of that initiative. It's going well, creating jobs, doing good things for the state of Kansas. Wichita Eagle said this is the kind of big thinking we need for the Kansas economy in the future. Some of the newspapers wrote that this is the foundation for the 21st century economy in Kansas. We need to be innovating. I formed and wrote legislation to form the Kansas Center for Entrepreneurship. Small business people and entrepreneurs are extremely important to this state. I'm sure many of you are small business owners. I'm a small business owner. I understand the struggles you go through every day to run a business. I understand the struggles that government causes you to go through on a daily basis trying to run a business. And so we formed the Center for Entrepreneurship to help people get started. Those initiatives alone should bring 43,000 new jobs to the state of Kansas. That's an accomplishment. It's an accomplishment we'll be able to talk about in this campaign that my opponent can't talk about. He doesn't have an accomplishment in that area. I'm honored because of my desire to keep taxes low and to help small business that the National Federation of Independent Business has designated me as a guardian of small business in the state of Kansas. I'm proud of that. I'm very proud of that. And we'll work hard to continue to do that. I believe it's the ability to build bridges and bring these accomplishments that we desperately need in Washington. The same Washington politicians, same old tired Washington politicians in many cases, seem to be doing the same thing over and over again, making promises, excuses, and fighting. We can no longer allow that broken Congress to exist. Now, I don't know if you all know what happened over the last week. I'm sure you do, because this generally is a pretty tuned-in crowd. But Congress, just over the last week, has done some things that will hurt this economy dramatically and hurt small businesses. I'm sure you're all aware of what happened last Thursday. The House Budget Committee met and started marking up the budget bill and ended up with $683 billion in tax increases on this country. My opponent, Dennis Moore, serves on that committee, was one of the architects of that plan, and voted for it on the floor. Couldn't be anything worse happen to our economy. Couldn't be anything worse happens to you as a small businessman to see those kind of tax increases, see that kind of growth in budget. If anything, we need fiscal responsibility in Washington, D.C. We don't need more spending. That's number one. Number two, he's blocking all kinds of reforms. He voted against the moratorium on earmarks. We need to deal with earmarks. We needed to pass a bill that would set up a commission that would sit down and come up with an open and realistic way to work with amendments and earmarks to the budget. There may be some things, there may be a highway need or something that's important, but again, more of the same broken Congress. Yesterday, and not even yesterday, the day before, Nancy Pelosi and Dennis Moore teamed up to take a big part out of the FISA Act, and again, putting our national security at risk. It's been a good act, it's worked. It's been able to protect our borders. We've been able to say we haven't had any attacks since 2001. It's a good system. We've got to be careful that we don't infringe on people's personal privacy, but we need to be tracking those terrorists from out of the country. Dennis voted with them to take a piece of FISA out, which now just makes that bill and that act no good. What's wrong? That's more of the same broken Congress. We don't have to accept that failed and broken Congress. We don't have to accept it at all. We need to make a change in Kansas. We need to get back to Republican principles. We need to get back to Republican roots. We need to get back to a limited government, low taxes, fiscal responsibility in Washington, D.C. We need to do it one block at a time, and I hope I'm one of those blocks that can go back to Washington, D.C. and give you, as I said before, my total commitment to change what's going on in Washington, D.C., to take the ideas, the innovative ideas, that I've been able to work with in the Kansas Senate and the Kansas legislature, take them to Washington, D.C. We can be innovative. We can do things differently than we've done in the past. We can solve our problems with innovative thoughts. We can handle healthcare on a market-driven solution and not a government solution. We don't need bigger government. We need smaller government. We need the citizens of this country to be able to live their life, make their money, and enjoy spending it the way they see it should be spent, and not the government taking it and spending it for you. We need people back in Washington, D.C. with that philosophy. I'll take that kind of philosophy back to Washington, D.C., and it's not rhetoric for me. You can look at my record in the Kansas legislature. You can see what I've done in the Kansas legislature, and I promise you I'll do the same thing when I get to Washington, D.C. Now, as Lynn, I think, just said, I'd be remiss if I sat down without saying we'd appreciate your support. We need your support. It's going to take the proper amount of resources to get our message out in this race. We'd appreciate contributions from you if you can bring us some contributions, but we need your support in this race. We're going to win this race. We've got every reason to believe we're going to win this race, and we're going to work hard to win this race. We will honor every contribution that comes in, and we'll work hard to make it work. This is election year. Voters have a simple choice in the 3rd District. If they want the same old tired policy, the same old broken Congress, they can send Dennis Moore back. If they want somebody with new thinking that's going to bring a new day and try to fix a broken Congress, they can send Nick Jordan for Congress. So I thank you for your time today. Appreciate your time today and appreciate your support. Let's go back and win some of these seats and take Congress back and start running this country the way it should be run. Thank you.
The second